च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. So we would like to continue our discussion on the great master Sri Ramakrishna's authentic biography. One of the reasons Swami Shardananji wrote this exhaustive life of Sri Ramakrishna was that quite a few biographies were published, and published when Sri Ramakrishna, some of them were being attempted to be published when Sri Ramakrishna was alive, but most of it was published shortly after his Mahasamadhi. And you will find that most of the devotees, including Ramchandra Datta, who attempted to write his biography, there were a lot of inaccuracies, a lot of the approach was not very objective, but it was very subjective. So they tried to express what they felt when they met the master and base their biography on their understanding of Sri Ramakrishna. So it became a very subjective attempt in portraying his life, which Swami Vivekananda did not approve of. So he asked Swami Shardananji first to send a short account of his life and teachings to Max Muller, who I think published the first English biography of Sri Ramakrishna, a very authentic one, though it is a very small book. But this book, this exhaustive, the great master, Sri Ramakrishna Leela Prasang, in 5 volumes, was a result. There are two reasons why Swami Sharanji seems to have attempted to write this. First was First was the reason I explained just now, that the two or three biographies of Sri Ramakrishna that were published in Bengali, and of course the English one was authentic because it was prepared by Shardananji and sent to Oxford, and Max Muller just edited it a little bit, not much, just reprinted it as it is. So that is an authentic biography, but most of the Bengali biographies were not satisfactory. That is what Shardanji himself writes, that they saw Sri Ramakrishna and understood him in the light of their own limited understanding, and then it was not a perfect biography. So that is one reason. And second reason was, after the passing away of Sri Ramakrishna, you know that 1886 to 1910, that is almost 24 years, Holy Mother had no place to stay. Of course, there was the family ancestral house that is in Kamarpukur, but there was nobody there. I mean, how could she live there alone? And the other relatives were not in a mood to cooperate with her. In fact, it is very sad to say, but Sri Ramakrishna had arranged for a pension, small pension of 7 rupees, the salary which he never collected in his lifetime. He never signed for that, but somehow they were accumulated. And Sri Ramakrishna, before he left his body in 1886, saw to it that a sum of 7 rupees, in those days it was good enough for a person to live in Kamarpukur. He had told him that you go and stay in our house there and don't ask anyone for any monetary help. He knew there would be a lot of difficulties she would have to face. So she goes there, and this 7 rupees also was stopped by the nephew Ramlal, Sri Ramakrishna's own nephew. He thought a lot of devotees are going there, and Holy Mother they must be supporting her. So whatever may be the misunderstanding, without any need for doing so, he just told the temple authorities that she doesn't need the pension. That is what I feel. So they just stopped without even inquiring. And Holy Mother, unfortunately, had as Sri Ramakrishna had said, don't ask anyone anything. So she just kept quiet with whatever little meager resources they had, and so many guests going there indiscriminately to see Kamarpuku, to meet her. She had obviously to feed all of them. So it was a life of great difficulty till Holy Mother's own mother, who was alive, she said, you are not going to stay here in this poverty. So she forced her to go to her home at Jairambati. So she goes to Jairambati, and then, of course, Balram's house and many other guests, though they were willing, they would have been very glad, including Master Mashay, to accommodate Holy Mother. It was not nice even today. In those days, it was unimaginable that uh, a widow would go and stay somewhere in someone's house. No house for her to stay. Even if there was a house, it was not. It was so difficult for Holy Mother to stay. So Swami Shardanand though himself was a monk, with no access to money, with great difficulty, they were somehow running Belur Mutt. They had just purchased the new land, and they also had a lot of debt and other things. He decided to take a loan to build the house for mother, which was his dream, the Udbodhan house. So naturally, how would you pay the installments? Even the interest was difficult to pay. But he took the risk and said, no, in under any circumstances, I'll not let Holy Mother suffer anymore. She should not be wandering, going from this house to that house. It's not a very good thing for uh, Holy Mother to do that. So he said, I'll take the risk. And he took a loan, and he knew he had to repay that loan. The lending authorities would obviously demand installments. So, to pay back the installments, he decided to write this book, C.C. Ramakrishna Leela Prasanga, and whatever proceeds uh, uh, after selling this book, he used to use all that to repay the loan. So that is how he slowly repaid that loan which he had taken, and finally managed to have Holy Mother stay in a house where she could be independent. And the last, as you all know, 10 years of her life, it took about 2 years for the building to be completed. So that is another reason why he started writing Leela Prasanga, the 5 volumes. And as I said, this is the second part which we are discussing. And he deliberately discusses the sadhak bhava, or Sri Ramakrishna as a sadhaka, to help the sadhakas who are going to come after him, whoever, whether it's the first generation or down to our generation. He knew there will be questions asked, there will be doubts. So, a authentic reply or authentic answer to all those doubts and questions, he's trying to give us by showing what are the different stages Sri Ramakrishna experienced during his sadhana. Obviously, that doesn't mean that we are going to experience all these things, because our intensity and our attempt, our sadhana is nothing compared to what Sri Ramakrishna did. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna said, I have done 1 rupee, I have done 16 annas. If you do 1 anna, that is fine. In those days, 16 annas made 1 rupee. So anyway, that is how he is trying to explain to us, to posterity, the different sadhanas that Sri Ramakrishna did. We can take whatever we can easily understand and follow, but at least we have to make an attempt to understand what was the ideal he set for us. We may not be able to do 16 annas, but at least one small part of that, if we can even hope to achieve as our upasana, that would be a great achievement. So, Swami Shardanandji, after discussing with most of the witnesses, because he was not there when Sri Ramakrishna did his sadhana, They were perhaps not even born, or they were born, maybe they were very young. So none of them had met Sri Ramakrishna. So his only source of information was Hriday, who very nicely served Sri Ramakrishna throughout his sadhana period, though he sometimes used to boss over Sri Ramakrishna and sometimes make him, he felt out of ego that Sri Ramakrishna is so much dependent on me. So he gave also a lot of trouble, which Sri Ramakrishna will mention. Many times he was very rude with Sri Ramakrishna, but he had to adjust because he was the one who practically saved his life throughout the sadhana period. So many times it was Hriday who looked after him, fed him, did so much of seva. So anyway, most of the information that we get here is what Hriday told, or there were instances in the life of Sri Ramakrishna when he himself uttered these things. They are very authentic because they were recorded by Swami Shardananji and others. So they have heard Sri Ramakrishna mentioning these things. And in gospel, we get a lot of information where Master Mashaya has recorded word by word. If Sri Ramakrishna said that he did a particular sadhana in this way, so those are the most authentic utterances. But other things also, which he heard from other devotees who were there in Dakshineshwar at that time, they are also important. So we came to the first vision which he had in the Kali temple. You find that was still not the end of his sadhana, that was just the beginning. Now he was restless to realize God through different paths of different sects of Hinduism. So he was normally restless for the vision of God. But if he was not busy with his own sadhana, at least he was busy with the worship. As usual, he tried to do all the puja and other things which he was supposed to do in his own way. And there was a standing instruction by Mathurnath Biswas before he passed away that nobody should disturb, whatever be the mode of worship, however he decides to worship the mother, whether he follows the Shastras or not, nobody should interfere because they were convinced that they would not get a better pujari than Sri Ramakrishna. And they had tremendous faith in his divinity. So, all the unconventional ways of sadhana that you will see, or worship, the formal worship was unconventional, but there was nothing out of the way. All was attested by Bhairavi Brahmani when she finally came as a guru. The first woman who became the guru of Sri Ramakrishna. But even she, based on her knowledge of the scripture, said that everything that Sri Ramakrishna did was somewhere or the other recorded in the scriptures, either the Tantras or the Vaishnava Tantras or the Shaiva Tantras. She was an adept in both. She was adept in even the Vaishnava sadhana. So she knew everything. She had read the scriptures. So she just came at a time when Sri Ramakrishna was beginning to do all these different sadhanas. So there, once he told about some of the experiences when he was sitting for worship and meditation. We find it difficult even to sit. So there, if you see in Dakshineshwar, there is a Bhairava, a form of Shiva. They say is a Bhairava is a form of Shiva, which is a statue on the top of the entrance to the main temple in Dakshineshwar. So the Bhairava has a particular role to play. Every one of our mythological characters, they have some significance. They should not be taken literally. Even Hanuman and all the uh, deities who play a role in our day-to-day sadhana, they have certain roles to play. So very often Sri Ramakrishna, before he entered the Bhavatani temple, MS seen that he used to offer worship to this Bhairava, was sitting there. So that Bhairava, he says There is an image of Bhairava, a form of Shiva in meditation. He is sitting in meditation on the parapet of the Nat Mandir in front of the Kali temple. While going to the temple to meditate, I would point to that image of Bhairava meditating, and tell my mind, see, you must meditate on the mother like that motionless statue. And no sooner did I sit down to meditate, wherever, maybe in the Nat Mandir or somewhere else, then I would hear clattering sounds in all of my joints, beginning in my legs. It was as if someone inside me were turning keys to lock me up joint by joint, as if all the joints are being locked by some key, by some divine force. I was in that state powerless to move my body or change my posture even slightly. See, we struggle to keep our head, neck, and uh, spine straight. We find it so difficult. But Sri Ramakrishna was helped by this strange divine power he had, which he attributes to Bhairava. Of course, seeing Bhairava, we can get some inspiration. All these wonderful images, the meditating Shiva, the meditating Buddha. In Zen, they have what is known as Zen toys. Even to train children, they use these toys. So I just was curious. I got a toy myself. It's a small dog. They have made a dog. They have made a small statue of a dog where he is meditating, a frog meditating. So any animal, which obviously doesn't meditate, you can't see a dog meditating. But these Zen toys, they are meant to create some kind of imagery in your mind that everything around you, even the most restless animals, are meditating. So you should feel ashamed of yourself if you can't sit quiet. That's the idea. That is the idea behind the Zen toys. I never knew about it till I saw a small boy who attended one of the retreats in our Washington Center. And I was surprised to see how he could sit so quietly in the retreat when the elders were being more restless than him. So then his mother pointed out to the toy, and I brought that toy, a small dog. And in the house, I saw they had so many of these Zen toys. So she has a fascination to collect it and just keep it. Just watching it creates an image of a meditating person. A meditating animal should obviously inspire a meditating a human being to meditate. Because if animal as restless as a dog or a frog, if they are seen to be sitting in meditation, then we feel we are much better off. We should have enough self-control to even compared to those animals to sit and. So here, when he saw that Bhairava, it's not that the Bhairava was just put there as some kind of iconography or something like that. He, he, he used to think every time he entered, even before having darshan of mother, he says, while going to the temple to meditate, Sri Ramakrishna himself is saying this. I would point to that image and tell my mind. You see, the mind has to be told, it has to be given suggestions that you must meditate on the mother like this statue. He's doing that, and I am obviously supposed to do that. And not only when that thought came to him, suddenly, as said, a strange thing happened, and he felt as if he was not in a position to move. He had to sit till he was unlocked. And he says, I was powerless to move my body or change my posture even slightly. I couldn't stop meditating or leave the temple or do anything else I wanted. I was forced to sit in that posture until my joints began clattering again and again and were unlocked this time, beginning at my neck and ending in my legs. So the process was reversed. When it started with the legs. First, he found he could not move his legs. Then every joint of his body was locked. And when the time was over, the mother or the divine force within just unlocked. He felt as if somebody is unlocking, and now I'm free to get up. So when I first sat to meditate, I would first see particles of light like swarms of fireflies. Sometimes I would see masses of light on all sides. So you would see these are different things, not that we will also experience that, but that is what he experienced. So masses of light on all sides covering everything like a mist. At other times, I would see not that he saw the same thing every time. Sometimes he would see this, sometimes he would see something other than that. I would see that everything was pervaded by the bright waves of light like molten silver. I would see those things sometimes with eyes closed and sometimes with eyes open. I didn't understand what I saw, nor did I know if it was good or bad to be having such experiences. So I prayed anxiously to the mother. That's why when any experience or any experiences happen, we should follow this attitude and deliberately, even a person like Sri Ramakrishna, an avatara says, he didn't understand the meaning. He just saw and he did not even know whether it was good or bad. Since he depended totally on the Divine Mother, he prayed anxiously to her. I don't understand what is happening to me. I don't know any mantras and because he was not yet initiated. This was before the gurus came to him. Each guru gave, of course, a different mantra in that particular sadhana. But he says, I don't know any mantras and other incantations to call you. Please teach me how to know you. Mother, if you won't teach me, who will? I have no refuge or guide except you. Thus I used to pray with one pointed mind and cry profusely with a longing heart. So in the beginning, it was just pure yearning to have a vision of the Holy Mother, which gave him his first vision. So many things changed in his behavior, which other people, of course, could not understand. So his method of worship and meditation, according to Swami Shardanji, underwent phenomenal changes. It is hard to explain his wonderful ecstatic mood, his simple childlike reliance upon the Divine Mother, and the beauty of his self surrender. In his behavior, there was no hint of an adult's seriousness, nor any effort to follow the customary rules of appropriate behavior, nor any attempt to consider the future and conduct his activities accordingly. So, you'll find that many of our problems when we face, especially after initiation, because that is the formal uh, introduction to our spiritual life. But if we see Sri Ramakrishna's life, that is why it is so important to understand in minute detail this wonderful book, The Great Master. Many people feel that, of course, it is such a big book. Even recently, when I said, people keep on asking, should I read the whole book? Arre Baba, to just pass a school exam, final exam, you have to read 10, 15 books. So can't we read one book, The Great Master? I'm not tired of telling this because had even when we were asked to even to apply for initiation, we were asked to fill a form and make a declaration. Swami Vireshwaranji was so strict. You had to finish reading. Just because I had not read the Holy Mother's Big Life by Swami Gambhirananda, which for many of the devotees now it is, they say it is such a big, shall we not read a small life? Or if better still, read a children's pictorial biography. I mean, it is ridiculous. Even you can't pass a class 6 exam by reading small booklets. And we struggle day and night to read big, big books, carry so much of books to our school, and pressurize the poor child to study, study, study till, and we don't feel any pressure doing that and expect the child to bear all that pressure. And when adults are asked before initiation to read a great master, which is just one book, they say, can we not read it afterwards? Or can we just read a few chapters? I find it so difficult. I get no time. So this is why reason why Swami Shardanji wrote this. First of all, because the Ramchandra Datta and all had very little knowledge. Having seen the master, having lived with him, they could not understand him. So forget, we have not even seen, we don't have the least inkling of who Sri Ramakrishna is, what is his nature, what he can do for us, how can he change our life, and then we expect all our problems to be solved. So here Swami Shardanji is very, very clear that unless we meditate deeply, he took so much of pains, not just to pay off the loan which he had taken to shelter Holy Mother, who was without a house for 24 years. So in 1910, when he took a loan against all advice, they said, don't take a loan. Who's going to pay? You are not earning a single penny being a monk. He said, I'll sell the book and the proceeds, I will pay the interest. Because he took that risk and because he wrote this book, it was Holy Mother's blessings. He himself says that the day she passed away, after that I could not complete. So that's why the Leela Prasang is incomplete. The last portion he could not write. He says now that she has withdrawn all the powers, perhaps that she doesn't want me to write. So it was, of course, with her grace that he wrote. But at the same time, it was a lesson to us that even such a trivial cause was responsible for his writing the book. Of course, as I said, the first primary intention was the two or three biographies that were printed in Bengali. Of course, the English one was authentic because Max Muller's biography, as I said, was written by Shardananji and sent under the instructions of Swami Vivekananda. It was because of that he just published it without even checking it. Because Max Muller was a famous name and the whole English speaking world came to know about Sri Ramakrishna. But that is an authentic biography because it was compiled by Swami Shardananji under instructions of Vivekananda. But here he tries to expand this whole thing, knowing fully well that if in future, as they did themselves, if in future people will come to Sri Ramakrishna, which Sri Ramakrishna or who is the Ramakrishna whom they should worship? Is the Ramakrishna or some Thakur whom they worship during Kalpataru, thinking that all the simple toys of the world he will give me if I just stand in a queue and get pray to him? Kalpataru means a wish fulfilling tree. But unfortunately, he doesn't fulfill those wishes which are harmful for us. So they started writing all these things, including Ramchandra Datta, writing so many miracles or so many experiences he had, which may not have been authentic. And people thought this is what Sri Ramakrishna is capable of. And they had probably, Sardanji felt that they got a very incomplete and a wrong picture of Sri Ramakrishna. And if you start with a wrong picture or an incomplete picture of Sri Ramakrishna, then our meditation is also not going to be fruitful. Because Sri Krishna himself tells in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, as people's faith, the faith with which they worship me, as demigods, as somebody who fulfills their wishes, I reply to them in that particular way. So if a child goes to the mother and says, I want a particular toy, she says, okay, you take this toy and go. It's only when it asks for higher toys and higher things, the mother changes. But you have asked for this toy, I give you that. So that is exactly what Swami Shardanji is saying, that when we approach God with an incomplete idea of who Sri Ramakrishna is, the benefits we'll get will also be incomplete. As Sri Ramakrishna himself said, if you go to the king and ask him for some pumpkins because you want to eat pumpkins, people will laugh because you have gone to the king, you can ask for jewels, you can ask for valuable things. You don't go to a king to ask for pumpkins. So that is what Swami Shardanji believed, that in future generations they should not be confused, or they should not be have a wrong conception of who Sri Ramakrishna is and what he is capable of. For that, he felt the need of writing this biography. So, All these things which Sri Ramakrishna did, according to Shardanji, was not for himself. He had already realized the highest. Mother has given him the vision. Why did he yearn for new gurus, that is Bhairavi Brahmani? Because he wanted to follow and show the world that these different paths are also his own paths. Some may be suiting some people, some may not suit some people. So there are so many infinite paths to reach the same goal. So he used to have these visions. As I said, he used to see so many different visions, some experiences which other sadhakas might have seen in their own life. So Shardananji says even the master, he would not understand. If he could not understand, how can we understand? We seek an explanation. I saw this. Some people tell me they get dreams of snakes. What should I? I said, dream is a dream. We don't have to bother our head to interpret everything that we experience, whether in dream or deep sleep. So he says, I see masses of light on all sides covering everything like a mist. At other times, I would see everything was pervaded by bright waves like molten silver. And he says, sometimes I would see these things with eyes open and sometimes eyes closed. And a person, a sadhaka like Sri Ramakrishna says, I did not know if it was good or bad to have such visions. So, what is the solution? He prays to Mother. I don't understand what is happening to me. I don't know the mantras and all because he was, as I said, not initiated. And you please tell me how to know you. So I used to pray with a one pointed mind and cry profusely with a longing heart. So during this period, then a lot of changes took place. That is what Shardanji says. Obviously, he heard from Hriday. It is hard to explain that how his nature drastically changed after the vision. When he really saw, he was, before he had the vision of the Divine Mother, without the help of anyone, because at that time Bhairavi and all the other gurus, Totapuri and all, had not come. So this was on his own. He, through yearning, he did this. But it is very hard, even Sardanji says, to explain his wonderful mood after this vision, his simple childlike reliance upon the Divine Mother, and the beauty of his self surrender. In his behavior, there was no hint of an adult seriousness, nor any effort to follow the customary rules of appropriate behavior, nor any attempt to consider the future and conduct his activities accordingly. So, in the West, also, when many of the Western disciples of Swami Vivekananda used to tell him, especially the American disciples and some of the English disciples, they used to say, Swamiji, what is your plan? They would always ask, what shall we do? How should we plan? That's typical of Western behavior. They want to plan everything. Even a holiday, you have to plan, where and everything has to follow a system. So, Swami Vivekananda said, that is the problem with you all people. Many of the times your plans don't go according to your things do not go according to your planning. So why spend the whole life? Just take a chance and do things in an unplanned way. So that is why I never plan. I just somebody invites, I go, and then I don't have a business like attitude that if I go, then what will happen? If I pray, whether I'll get this, if what will happen, how it will change my life, how it will affect my career. If you think of all those things, then you can't uh, can't say that you are following the master, because he had this attitude that he never made any attempt to consider the future and conduct his activities accordingly. So, like, he got a shock. In fact, he went into samadhi, or he went into a swoon, not samadhi, he went into a swoon when Hriday told a very simple thing. He told him, Hriday once brought a small calf, and he told Sri Ramakrishna, said, why have you brought this calf? He said, I'm going to take it to Shihor, that is his birthplace. Said, why do you take this calf to all the way to Shihor? Then he said, see, uncle, I have brought this calf so that I'll feed it now and I'll keep it in Shihor when I go. It is easy to carry. If I purchase a bullock, then it is so difficult. So I'm taking this calf. After a few years, He will be fresh enough, and then he will be yoked to the plows, and then then our people will uh, do their farming using that bullock. So Sri Krishna was shocked at this. It was unimaginable for his mind that one could plan so much. You put this poor calf into bondage right now, and the simple thought that this poor calf will be bound and be under the control of Hriday, just so that when it grows, it will be in greater bondage, completely under the control, that bullock has no freedom. So he was imagining how Maya works, how they bind us with all this. So then that idea was terrible for him. So you can imagine, how could you tell him to plan something? He would say, "My divine mother will decide. Whatever I have taken the masters at that time, wholeheartedly adopted this attitude. Mother, I have taken refuge in you. I am your child. Teach me what to do and say." Even what he had to say, Hriday was sometimes confused. He said, "If you tell everything today, what will you tell the devotees tomorrow?" He said, "You don't bother. Mother will tell me what I should say. You don't bother your head because of that." So, thus, he says, he plunged his little ego after the first vision into the will of the Divine Mother and performed all of his actions as her instrument. So, his conduct therefore became significantly different from the other people who thought they have to plan their lives. Public opinion began to turn against him. Naturally, if you lead a life like this, people will criticize you. So they criticized his behavior, at first in whispers, but then openly. But what could they do? The child of the Divine Mother was carrying out her wishes. How would they know what he was doing? And the vain clamor of the perplexed world did not reach his ears at all, because he was not given to gossiping. So if he goes into social circles, then he will hear, "Oh, this fellow is saying this." He was so busy that the moment his puja was over, Hriday had to run to see where he is, because he had to feed him. He was serving him with so much devotion. Then he said, often Mama used to run into the Panchavati away from the people, because people were still afraid to go in that dark, that was like a deep forest. Even in those days, it was a deep forest, and people were afraid of snakes and other ghosts and other things. So he knew nobody would come to disturb my meditation. So he used to go there. And then, so there was no question of waiting for people like Hriday to come and tell him who is talking about you and who is commenting upon you. So, and the master was in the world, but not of it. The external world now appeared to him to be a dream. He could not make it appear real as it had seemed before, despite his efforts to do so. The conscious and blissful form of the Divine Mother was his only reality and his only hope. Previously, during worship and meditation, the master would see Mother's hands, her shining, delicate feet. There are so many songs he used to sing. Of course, he used to sometimes sing songs of previous worshippers of Kali, like Ram Prasad, Kamala Kanta, and all. That beautiful songs, that the flower of Jaba is at your feet, red feet, and all those things. So he would see Mother in that form before this, but not now. Her beautiful, loving, and smiling face. But now, even when it was not time for worship and meditation, the master would see the complete form of the luminous divine mother, smiling, talking, accompanying him, and guiding him by saying, "Do this and don't do that." So, this is a major difference that he felt, that he didn't feel the need to go to the temple anymore to struggle and to meditate, but mother was all the time guiding him, almost guiding him in every moment, telling him what to do, what not to do. Now, this is what happened after the first realization. Earlier in his sadhana, while offering food to the mother, the master would see a flashing light, ray of light emanate from the mother's eyes, touch the offered food articles, because Holy Mother has once asked, she said, the master used to tell me. So it's a very authentic thing. Gather their essence and then withdraw back into the ice. That is how it becomes prasad. If it has been offered with devotion like Sri Ramakrishna did. Obviously, somebody asked Holy Mother, uh, d- d- what happens when we offer? Does the deity really consume the food? Because we don't see anything being consumed. The prasad is as it is. Whatever you offer, we only eat it. It's not the goddess. But he said, no, Sri Ramakrishna told her that. And even she used to see that when she offered to Sri Ramakrishna in her own simple ritual, very simple puja. The more complicated you make your puja, the less chance there is that the Lord will accept. Now, when you feed, say, your own husband or your own family, you don't decorate and you don't spend half an hour doing things. You just offer food. If the food is tasty, lovingly feed the person, he is happy to eat. That is how Holy Mother used to do. Her puja was very simple. It is only because we worship out of fear. We feel if we don't do this puja, that ritual, this ritual, because the priests have over a period of time added so many paraphernalia and rituals. If you don't do this, you will this incur this sin. Oh, this was not done. That is why this uh, problem has happened in your house. So out of fear, we are trembling with fear. People, when the seniors pass away from there, they come here with the images, they are trembling. I don't know why one is afraid of God so much. They come trembling saying that this God we cannot worship because my parents used to worship with so much of ritual, we can't do that. God doesn't need that. We have created our own imagination. We have the priestcraft is responsible for that. More elaborate the ritual, the more chances are that you'll get a following, and then you can claim some compensation saying, I did 3 hour puja, 4 hour puja. So that is how Sri Krishna, though he began with ritualistic worship, but he did in his own way. So he used to see all these things and offer it, and that is why he was criticized by the priests who were jealous of him. They said Choto Bhattacharya is not doing proper puja. He is just doing, sometimes he is talking to mother and eating from her plate what is supposed to be offered. So sometimes he says he used to see, earlier he used to see a ray of light coming, accepting the offer and then offering, and then he would take the offering, then he knew that the mother has accepted. But now, as soon as he offered food, after the first vision, and sometimes even before that, he would see the mother herself seated in front of him to eat the food. And the shining glory with which she came, it would flood the whole shrine. So Hriday told us, that is, Hriday observed all these things and he protected his uncle because he knew if the other priests see this, they will go and complain and maybe remove him from the job. He's breaking all the rules. So Hriday told us one day he went to the shrine. When Hriday went, he just went to see. He watched the master took a hibiscus flower, jaba, and a bay leaf in his hand to offer at the feet of mother. He then held them and meditated, but then he suddenly cried out, wait, wait, let me say the mantra first, and then you can eat. He then offered food to the mother before finishing the ritual. So every day, some new experience Hriday used to see. He had a new experience to see how uniquely creative the master's puja was. During worship and meditation, the master used to see the living presence of the mother in the temple's stone image of her. Now he could not see that stone image at all. In its place was the living mother, the embodiment of consciousness, her hands bestowing boons and fearlessness. Later, he described what actually happened. It's master's own words. So, I put my hand near the mother's nostrils and felt that she was actually breathing. At night, I watched carefully, but in the lamplight, I could never see her shadow on the temple wall. See, this is another thing. when you have a gross body, they say, how can you distinguish between a gross body and a subtle body? People do have visions of subtle body if they are tuned to that particular uh, subtle world, sukshma sharira. So when you see a ghost, what you actually see is a sukshma sharira. So there is a saying that when you see, if it's a ghost, there will be no reflection on the wall because it's not an object. A person who sees the ghost, normally you'll see that the person who is next to him may not see him because he is not tuned to that subtle plane of existence where he can see. So when you see a divine vision, as Sri Ramakrishna saw, as Sri Arjuna saw, because Sri Krishna gave him the boon of the divine Chakshu, Divya Chakshu. He could see the Vishwarupa Darshana. When the whole Kaurava army, everybody was there, they could see nothing. So here he says, this is a real experience he is describing, that she was actually breathing and he was really wondering whether she is a living, is she in her physical body? If she was in a physical body, then the light would create a shadow on the wall. So you see, he was even conscious at that time. He said, I could never see her shadow. If a person passed by, you could see a shadow. So you see, he's explaining how these divine visions, what is the nature or what is the real uh, state of that particular uh, image that appears before us. The state, is it gross? Is it subtle? It's beyond even the subtle because there's no shadow. From my room, I would hear mother running upstairs, as merry as a little girl, with her anklets jingling. I would rush outside to see if this was true, and there she would be standing on the veranda of the second floor of the temple, with her hair blowing in the breeze. She would sometimes look towards Calcutta and sometimes towards the Ganges. So all these things were described by Sri Ramakrishna himself. So we can't comment on this because it is so difficult unless one has that vision. They say once Vireshwaranji my guru was asked whether he, uh, whether it is true, these spiritual visions and all. He said, yes, they are not only true, they are as true, but he says, a person who has seen a ghost, real ghost, I mean, a ghost which is, of course, people are afraid of that. He says, has some chance to see a divine vision which is uh, far superior than that of a ghost. Ghost means your mind is subtle enough, it is sensitive enough to see the subtle jivas around you, which is not, we are so gross that we don't see that. But these people, like Sri Ramakrishna, he used to see. He saw Rani Rasmani. She died. She died in her home in Jan Bazar. But Sri Ramakrishna actually saw her ascending, the subtle body leaving the gross body. Then he thought he saw as if a sword, when Akshay passed away, he saw that just as a sword is removed from the scabbard, the subtle body leaving the gross body. Now, how can we understand this? Because we don't have that subtle vision or the subtle eyes to see that vision. Not that seeing a ghost is something to do with spirituality. What is meant is it requires some different type of subtle senses to understand what these visions are. So he says, Hriday himself recalled once when one entered the Kali temple in those days when Sri Ramakrishna was there, one could perceive an ineffable divine presence and felt an eerie sensation because Turyananji himself says, if a person was impure, he would feel his heart to beat. Some of his friends whom he took, the more pure you are, the more comfortable you felt. Because even the power of the purity and the divine presence of Sri Ramakrishna would cause commotion. That is why you see when people, boat full of devotees used to go, only one or two used to sit in his room. And the other, though they would forcibly go to accompany their relatives, within 2 minutes, they will say, no, 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 we will just go and wait in the boat. It's not that they were bored or something like that. It would create a lot of pressure on them. So we'll find everywhere. It is so difficult. People come from such a far distance, even when you'll see it typically in the pilgrimage center, especially when there is a lot of divine power. People can't sit. They just want to see the sights and have darshan. So it has literally become, sometimes there is a crowd, they don't allow you to have darshan, they'll just push you. That is different. But even in places where you really are supposed to visit and sit there and enjoy the solitude, which is the main purpose of a pilgrimage center, whether it is Kedar, Badri, if you go, there are times, there are places where you can really, there are times, definitely there are times when you can have an uninterrupted, even in the busy Jagannath temple I have seen. If you go and quietly sit in the corner, nobody is going to disturb you. Only if you want to offer certain things and want some prasad, then you have to bribe the panda and do so many things. Then it is a totally different ball game. It is it is very common. People just go. They don't know why they are going there. But if a person with a devoted temperament goes, he will surely get a corner. I have seen in Somnath temple, Dwarka temple, there are people sitting with their japmala in a corner. They don't bother to even have darshan because they will be pushed if they go for darshan. So they sit quietly and do whatever Ishta mantra they have. Sit for 1 hour, nobody disturbs them. If you are not keen to go into that the center of that place where everybody thinks just having a glimpse of the Lord will solve all their problems eternally. Such people only go there. But those who are devotees, they want to take something away from this holy place. So I have seen, many times I have seen people sitting in a corner, maybe till the whole crowd goes away. They don't mind sitting there for a few hours, meditate, because that is what they should have come there in the first place. It's not for darshan. The idea of darshan is not there. All the Buddhist temples, if you see, originally the congregational worship was meant for a place where you go away from the disturbance and the commotion of your home, sit there for hours together. That was the main purpose of these shrines, or this original purpose. If you have more commotion and congestion and socializing and so many functions, and you make the mela of the place of worship. That's why Jesus, when he went to the Jewish places of worship, he said, you have converted the temple of the place of worship of my father into a den of thieves. They were money changers. The Jews were doing all sorts of rituals. So he got so angry that Jesus was a very mild person. But if you read the biography, he became so strong that day that he could not tolerate this business. He just got hold of those Jews and said, draw them out of the temple. He said, this is not, you have spoiled the place of worship of my father's house. You have turned into a den of thieves. So that is what Sri Ramakrishna used to feel here. And that is why he even had the courage to slap the builder of this temple, Rani Rasmani, when she was sitting in the shrine. When he was singing, he could immediately catch the vibrations that she has brought some silly issue, some court issue, and thinking of what will happen in the court, how will the lawyer represent, and will they lose or will they. That thought was just come to her mind, and Sri Ramakrishna, like a child, goes and slaps her, and everybody shocked. How could you slap Rani Rasmani, who built this temple, who employed you? But he didn't care because he saw that here this is not a place to come and think of your lawsuits and other things. Here, Sri Ramakrishna himself is singing about the Divine Mother. He is in a totally different mood. So a slight change of that mood made him upset. And he did not even hesitate. Of course, later on he repented that he should not have. But she understood. How did he understand that I was in having this thought? So anyway, when he started behaving like this, because he was seeing the Divine Mother, people thought he has gone mad. What else would he do to uh, explain such strange things? He says, I was afraid of what the Rani and Mathur Babu would say when they come to hear of it. He did it because what he saw, he had to respond to that. If mother says, you eat, I'm very keen that you eat first, then I will take. She said, you are my child, you eat first. Now, if he takes the prasad and others watch, they'll think this fellow has gone mad. He's supposed to offer, then the prasad should be taken, but he's eating before offering to the mother. So he says, Hriday was worried that if Rani and Mathur Babu, they would dismiss him if somebody complained. So he was trying to protect his uncle. But he says, my uncle was unconcerned and paid no heed to my warnings. I didn't venture to speak to him much any longer. My mouth was closed by a fear which I can't describe. Even he felt powerless. He said, anybody who entered that temple premises or the Nat Mandir in those days or Garbha Mandir, they said people used to feel some throbbing in the heart. I felt that there was some kind of barrier between us. I didn't even have the courage, though I knew I wanted to warn him that people are watching. Some priest will come and complain against you. So I just looked after him in silence as best I could, but I was afraid that the people will make a scene someday. They'll create a scene and then that will be trouble for Sri Ramakrishna. Maybe the temple authorities will complain and he would be removed. Sometimes Hriday would visit temple during the puja. Upon seeing his master actions, he immediately felt awe, fear, but at the same time devotion. Later, he narrated to the following to us. I saw uncle taking hibiscus flowers and bay leaves in his hand, touching first his head, then his chest, then all over his body, even his feet. So it was ridiculous. I mean, you touch the flower to your own feet. And finally, offering those at the feet of the Divine Mother. I saw uncle's chest and eyes became red. He'd get up, reeling from the worshipper's seat, climb onto the altar, and caress the Divine Mother, chucking her affectionately under the chin, and he would sing, laugh, joke, and talk with her. Sometimes he would catch hold of her hands and also dance. I saw how, when he was offering cooked food to the Divine Mother, he'd suddenly get up, take a morsel of rice and curry from the plate in his hand, touch the mother's mouth with it, and say, eat it, mother, do eat it. Then maybe he'd say, oh, you want me to eat it. And then you will eat some afterwards. All right, I'm eating it now. Then he'd take some of it himself and put the rest to her lips, saying, I have had some, now you eat. One day, uncle saw a cat at the time of the food offering. It had come into the temple mewing. He fed it with the food that was to be offered to the Divine Mother. Will you take it, mother, in this form? He said to the cat. Some nights I saw that when uncle put the Divine Mother to bed, he would sometimes ask, do you want me to fan you? So saying, he would also sit there and start fanning her. Again, I saw that while uncle performed worship, he was so deeply absorbed in meditation that he had not the slightest outer consciousness for a very, very long time. Early morning, when he arose, uncle would pick flowers to make garlands for the Divine Mother. At those times, I noticed that he was talking with someone unseen, laughing, coaxing, and joking. I further saw that at night, uncle did not sleep at all. Whenever I awoke, I found him in an exalted mood, talking, singing, or immersed in meditation in the Panchavati. So, next topic is, we'll conclude now, is observing the master's ecstatic worship. The temple manager and the workers, they all come together to notify Mathur. So, obviously, though Hriday tried to protect him, from the gaze of this. These curious people always they used to gossip with each other and say that now this Choto Bhattacharya will be dismissed. He can't continue long. He's breaking all the rules, the ritualistic, uh, the normal rules of puja. So that discussion is there now. What happened and how they decided to all go together, and they asked Mathur, then what happens? We'll see that in the next class. So, are there any questions? Few minutes. Yeah, yeah. You have, you can ask. You can ask. I'm waiting for the online people to ask. Yeah, yeah, you can ask.
So, with regards to this, the feeling of the deity being live, she's breathing, all those things. Could it be, from the Vedantic standpoint, uh, be explained through the superconscious stage through which the master always belonged, and he always had a feeling that it's not that I which we call as ourselves, but then that inner I, or that supreme being that sees the I itself, right? And talking to that external I. So could it be?
Yeah, it is definitely not what we experience in the world. Otherwise, others would see that. As I said, when he saw, he talked. Obviously, others did not see. They just saw the stone image. So it is a subjective, conscious, super conscious nature, or whatever explanation we can give. Of course, he will explain what do you mean by the divine eyes, and as I said, you don't see the shadow. That is a very good indication it is not physical. If it were to be physical, then there would be a shadow. So I remember one of our senior monks, he said some Russian Kirlian scientist has photographed the subtle body. So they call it Kirlian photography. Many of these Russians, they believed in these spirits, Mahatmas, and spooky things, Theosophical Society. And a lot of scientific research was done. Some of them had visions. So they kept cameras ready, and then they published certain photographs. Books are written. Kirlian, it is known as, you can read, Kirlian photography. So the question was, the photography was actually, they published that, said that under certain circumstances, we invoked the spirits and they came and we photographed it, and this is, so a lot of research was done. Then somebody asked our revered Swami Bhuteshananji, see, Maharaj, they say now a book has been published. He said, don't read such stupid books. If it is, have you not? That's the problem. We don't read the great master. It very clearly says he did not see a shadow. If it doesn't produce a shadow, that means it is not physical. If it is not physical, no camera in the world we can catch it. How can a camera catch a sukha sharira, sukshma sharira? Said sukshma chhavi hoy na. How can you take a photo of a ghost? So if they say they have captured the spirit in camera, there is something wrong. It's fundamentally wrong. So they have to be seen. It is a subjective experience where a certain state of mind you see these things. It is like daydreaming. Do people not dream? Even to excel in certain sports, so you have to imagine a situation. You go on imagining in your mind. You may not actually be on the field, but you create a mental image and convince yourself that this is what I'm going to face tomorrow. And then you go on the field and then it actually happens. So, in the mental imagination, in dreams, you can recreate these things. They are not real in the sense they are not real for others, but they are real for the people who see them. That is why he was fully conscious. So, he wanted to see if she is real, if she is in flesh and blood, as then others would have seen her. That did not happen. But when he was alone, how to know whether it is real or then he said, I noticed that there is no shadow. This is a very important fact. He didn't see the shadow of the Divine Mother. If he had seen the shadow, that means it was something which had come to life and then vanished. But that doesn't happen. So visions are always in a superconscious field. From the superconscious field, they see all these visions. And moreover, he didn't have this vision in the beginning. The first, it was just a vision of light. So that's why Brahmananji says the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the Advaita, highest realization of Advaita, which people make such a big fuss. He says that is the Nirvikalpa Samadhi is the beginning of spiritual life. You start having higher and higher visions after that. So the first vision which he had was not the mother in flesh and blood. He saw a light coming when he took the sword to kill himself. He saw a light coming from the image and engulfed him, and he lost his consciousness. So that idea of formless, which we think is the greatest realization, was just the beginning of his spiritual life. So how can you understand this when we have not even reached the first realization which he had? We at the most we can imagine or hope that even if we have whatever little vision, whatever little we can understand, if we have these visions, that would be a great achievement. But it's not going to happen so uh, easily, because it requires a tremendous amount of, as he said, tremendous amount of purity, devotion, dedication, keeping away from any worldly influence. These are very strict conditions. It's not that he had the vision just because he sang a few songs of Kamalakant or Ram Prasad. Anybody can do that and uh, say that I am devotion, I'm a great devotee of God. But he was damn serious. He said, if Ram Prasad says that he saw mother in this form and you are not showing to me, then I'll kill myself if you don't show. That was the intensity with which he really wanted to see. Then he had a vision, not as the later vision was totally different. As Shardanji says, you have to see the sequence of his sadhana. First, he just sees light. He doesn't see the mother as a physical or whatever vision also he doesn't have. He just have a vision of an rapidly spreading light engulfing him. So that is how you should understand the different visions. They are difficult to understand because they are a matter of experience. You have to experience to understand. But at least we have to know, because somebody of the caliber of Shardananji has written it and he has tried to explain as much as he can, by using logic, by using counter arguments, questions, because doubts will come. We won't accept, especially a person who is having a scientific approach to life. Everything he wants to justify by reason, he will not accept. So Sri Ramakrishna saw these things. It is authentic because he saw it, and because uh, the his life showed that the result of his vision, there was a change in behavior, and all these things were testified later by the gurus who came afterwards. All this is even before Bhairavi came. So when he said like a child, you see, I saw this. Am I? Is it a hallucination? Is mother cheating me? Or I'm just getting these visions because of some illness. Then Bhairavi Brahmani said, no, 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 it tallies with what the Vaishnava scriptures say. It tallies with what Shakta scriptures say. Then she will quote. And when she confirms it, Sri Ramakrishna is happy. So that is known as Shastra Pramana. You have to prove it. Somewhere it should have been recorded. It should be an authentic spiritual experience. Now somebody will see something, and if there is no precedence, because these things they are not new discoveries or like writing a book. These are the records of real spiritual experiences that have happened. Similarly with other prophets also, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that is how they record. And if you are an expert in the literature of Chaitanya and all the past sadhakas, then find out certain common between that and the your experience or Sri Ramakrishna's experience, then we say, oh, this is how it should be, and this is how it has happened because he has followed this particular path. So Advaitin will see something else. A follower of Krishna will experience God in a different way. So our concept of God is what determines our visions. So the visions can be totally different to two people. That's the idea. So it is unique for him because And for him, it is because he's Sarva Deva Devi Swarupa, he could take up any god and realize God in that form. That is his uniqueness. Everybody else specialized in one form. That is either Vaishnava, or if he is a Vaishnava, he is always a Vaishnava. He will not accept anything, even the Divine Mother, he will not accept. So that was the trend in those days. If you are a Vaishnava, you have to be 100% Vaishnava. You will not do what Shaktas did. What is a rule for them may be prohibited for you. What is a rule for Vaishnavas may be prohibited, may not be followed by Shaktas. So everyone was following, continuing to worship in his own way. And that is why Mathur Babu comes. We'll come to that later. And he says, don't disturb him. Let him worship in any way. All the priests, they tried to complain, and then they said, no, you should not. He can worship in any way he likes because of his. People were convinced of his genuine spiritual experiences. Yeah.
Ramakrishna's life.
Was Bhakti Yoga? Uh,
Bhakti Yoga applying by throughout Sri
yeah, Bhakti Yoga externally, yes. If you see, so Sriram Swami Vivekananda is answered. He says he was apparently Sri Ramakrishna was all bhakti outside, but inside he was full of jnana. And he about himself he said, apparently people think I am full of jnana, I don't believe in, but inside he was full of bhakti. So bhakti and jnana are complementary. So to have real devotion, one has to be very full of viveka. Sri Ramakrishna was full of jnana because according to jnana, you have to follow nitya nitya vastu viveka. What is good, what is bad. So he was never made a mistake as far as those things. He knew what is bad for a sadhaka, he followed it. He knew what is good, he did it. So he was full of jnana also. So every time bhakti succeeds only because one is jnani from inside. So that is the answer. So you cannot say that somebody, even in bhakti, you need jnana because jnana means to discriminate between the real and unreal. Sri Ramakrishna made it very simple. To discriminate between nitya and anitya means not real and unreal. Its English meaning is eternal and non-eternal. So anything that is not eternal can never give you security, can never give you support, can never give you anything of a permanent nature. So you can't bank upon it. So that jnana was always there in him. So if a mother was not eternal, Sri Ramakrishna would not have worshipped even the form. He knew this form also is eternal. He says in one place, he gives the example, how can a form be eternal? He says, why? He says, in the sea, when the sun of Jnana shines, the icebergs melt. The icebergs in the sea melt. They become water. But that doesn't mean they didn't have a form. They had a form once upon a time. When it was cold, cold because of bhakti, you created a form, you worshipped that form, you did puja, you did all everything. That form became formless when the sun of knowledge rose. But he says there are some places where the icebergs never melt, like the uh, polar regions, where it is always iceberg is there. There's no question of sun reaching there. So that eternal form also is true according to him. So that is higher than jnana and bhakti. It is a combination of both. So shall we conclude or there is any question? Yeah. Any else question? Yeah, you can ask.
I think just coming back to your previous point, actually what Swamiji said that he was basically a jnani within and bhakta without.
No. Jnani without, bhakta within. He was very devoted to Ramakrishna. And
I think he said about the master.
about master, yeah. About himself, it is opposite.
Just the opposite.
Yeah. Bhakta inside and he never displayed his devotion.
So in that context, did he do, I know he didn't do that actually, a comparison of any sort. But then one of his own teachings, Swamiji's teachings, had been that he could be free by applying any one of the four methods.
Yeah, but other two yogas also he added.
How
They are definitely relevant. They are psychological. See, if you consider your own mind, it's bhakti and jnana are only two paths. There are two more paths because we have four faculties according to yoga psychology. According to Western psychology, there are three faculties: thinking, feeling, and willing, willpower. So, according to the yoga philosophy, we have a fourth one, which I'll tell you what it is. The first is the emotion, the emotional side of a human being. So, everybody has an emotion. If you direct it towards God or the supreme reality, it is known as bhakti yoga. But then we have a thinking capacity. We are not fools. Every time we do something, we think. So, if we discriminate, if we develop that thinking faculty, we are Jnana Yoga followers. But then Swami Vivekananda said there are two more faculties. Another is willpower. Everybody has a feel. We can think, we can feel, and we can act upon it. To act, we need willpower. If you think I'm going to become a millionaire and sit at home, you're not going to become a millionaire. You have to act upon your thought and go to do some work. You have to exert your willpower and increase it so that you make that thought alive for you, work for you day and night. How do businessmen create money? They have a thought, but they just don't have thoughts and sit at home. And like Amartya Sen said in Coffee Club of Calcutta, they'll discuss all the problems of the world, how Sachin Tendulkar should bat, but they will never take a bat and play. Said that is not going to change the country or change themselves. They'll be sitting and discussing. Jnana and Bhakti are there. They are deeply devotional. They like discussion. They have the brain to discuss and even suggest solutions to the greatest people who are really in the field. You don't need to tell he is any cricket player who is successful or a football player. He's on the field, he's acting. So he has the willpower. That is karma yoga. According to him, when thoughts and feelings are converted into action, it becomes karma yoga. So thinking, just thinking will not help. Just feeling also will not help. I feel everybody, I feel for all the suffering humanity. But have I done something to just help even one person? Forget the whole world. You can sit and cry for the whole world that the Gaza people are suffering, everywhere people are suffering. I am full of tears sitting. So there is no will. So karma yoga has to be practiced according to Swamiji. Then the whole personality becomes so in our own field. We don't have to think of the whole world. But if jnana and bhakti, the two faculties, if they are good enough, then we should have the willpower to practice what we think or practice what we feel. But to do that, there is a fourth faculty, which is known as Raj Yoga. So that Raj Yoga, the secret of yoga which Patanjali discovered, or the yoga, those who propounded the philosophy, they said you cannot develop the willpower. You can develop thoughts, you can develop your emotions, you can even to a certain extent exert your willpower. But to increase the willpower, you need to control your mind because the energy is limited. So if you are dissipating your energy in 100 thoughts, then your mind will not focus on one thing. For that, you need concentration. So, what is that faculty? That is the faculty of restraining thoughts. So, not accidentally, they discovered a fourth faculty of the mind, which they consider to be most important. And Swamiji says three yogas can be practiced only if you have control of the mind, which is Raj Yoga. So he gave the name Raj Yoga because it is the king of sciences. Bhakti Yoga is also a yoga, it is a science. Jnana Yoga is also a yoga, it is a science. Karma Yoga is also, but all will become zero if you don't have Raj Yoga. That is control. Without control of mind, you can't do bhakti. How without controlling the mind, how can you do bhakti? You can't control your emotion. You can't control your thinking. So all the yogas depend on Raj Yoga. So fundamental, he said, Raj Yoga is like a rudder. two wings of a bird. He gave the example. Jnana is the left, the right, and then rudder, the Rajoga that you are practicing, uh, or meditation in japa, that controls both the wings. Without that, the wings may flutter, but it will not have a direction. So, to give direction to our willpower to make the bird fly, you need a particular direction. So, all the four yogas that way are important. But in a general way, or in a superficial way, they said Ramakrishna is full of bhakti outside. But obviously, he is full of Rajoga also. Without Raj Yoga, his bhakti, he used to sit. If you had come in the beginning, we were discussing, you were there. He used to feel as if all his joints are locked. So that is Raj Yoga. So mother made him practice Raj Yoga. That even if he wanted to, he could not get up. That is why he says the Bhairava, as soon as I saw the Bhairava sitting outside, meditating, I used to tell my mind, see, you be like that. When you go to the temple, don't fool around. Just sit like that. And actually, mother answered her prayer. She used to lock his joints from the, he said, no, from the knee to the head, everything was locked as if mother is locking. And then after the meditation was over, when she willed, she would unlock and it would start from the head to the feet, the reverse direction. Then he was able to move. He says, I could not help it. I was just. So that Rajoga was a essential part of his life also. You can't say just bhakti and jnana. And karma yoga, of course, because everything, whenever they say, Master Mahasaya was saying, he observed Ramakrishna very carefully. If he just accidentally said, I'll go and have darshan of mother, no matter how Keshav Babu, anybody may be there, he will just get up and go leave everybody and have darshan. And then on the way, he said nobody could stop him just to gossip. He has made a sankalpa, that is karma yoga. You make a sankalpa, you do it. If you make a sankalpa, you have willpower, you have willed that I will go and have darshan. On the way, somebody stops you, you just stop and then go, and then you forget, or maybe you don't go at all on the way. He said he never tolerated any interference. He said, Ami darshan kore ashimake, then everybody has to wait. He will go. He was always one pointed in his will. His will, our Mahendranath Gupta, or in Gospel, he writes, I have observed it. Once he said, then he would immediately jump up and say, he'll go. First he will have darshan and then that person has to wait. Then he will come back. Because he said, I have made a sankalpa. If I don't follow, I will be always relaxed, in a relaxed mood. Okay, if I'll go if I want, otherwise I'll not go. On the way, just pass my time and then go at my own time. So you have to be very particular. If you say, that is why when Naren told him, he said, come on Thursday or some day, he asked him to come. He said, I will come. And he did not come. He said, I can't see your face. You said you will come, and you said you will come on a particular day. You didn't come. If you have this attitude, you will never succeed. So he was so strict. If you give a word, you have to keep it. That shows that one-pointed behavior or one-pointedness comes from Raj Yoga. Yeah. So we'll conclude now. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna